So you might have seen the review I did on the Sapphire Pulse RX 9070 XT. It's a beautiful card with a ton of performance, and it went against a lot of other cards. Now, like you, I wanted to get rid of those cards and install the new card. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. I'm going to show you how to take your old graphics card out of your system, drivers and all, perfectly, and then how to install your brand new card and everything. Then I'm also going to show you what this magical black box has in store for you. But anyway, without wasting any more time, let's get started. So before we can install the new card, we need to prepare the system. The first thing we want to do on the old system is we want to open up GPU Z, and I'll have links down below where you could pick it up. And this is the old card. You want to make sure that you are set to UEFI. If UEFI is not enabled, you could run into some black screens and a few other issues. I'll have links down below to another video where I show you how to do that. So we'll close this out, and you can see right here we're using an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4060. All right, so we'll close that out. Then we'll open up Chrome. First, we'll download DDU from wagnardsoft.com. We'll click on the DDU display driver uninstaller here. Then scroll down a tiny bit, and then click here for download and support. And then come down here. I'll do the portable self-extracting one, so I'll click here. And it's really tiny, so it downloads quick. Then we'll go to AMD.com. We'll go to resources and support, and then we'll go to drivers. Scroll down a tiny bit. Here we'll select under browse products. We'll select graphics. We'll select Radeon RX, then Radeon RX 9000 series, and then AMD Radeon RX 9070 XT or 9070 without the XT. We're using the XT right now, and then we'll click submit. Then you'll select whatever operating system you're using. I'm using Windows 11 64-bit edition, and you can use the auto detect and install, but I'd prefer to use the version they list down here right under it, and I'll click download, and that will take a few seconds. And this is where you'll download GPU Z from techpowerup.com, and you can just download it from here, and then click download here, and then choose your region and download here. This is optional. You don't need to do this, but I like to use this software just to verify everything's in check. It looks like it's done, so we'll go ahead and close out of here. Here we're going to log into safe mode for Windows. You need to make sure you have a local account. If not, you're not going to be able to log in. Let me show you real quick how to get a local account. So for that, we'll just click on the start button, then type control and open up the control panel. You might need to switch yours to large icons just to make it a little bit easier. And then here you'll go to user accounts and then make changes to my account in PC settings. Then here you'll see if you're logged into a Microsoft account, it'll show Microsoft account over here, and then sign in with a local account. You have to set that up, but it only takes a few seconds. Since I'm using a local account, I can't show you that, but we'll go ahead and close out of here. So after you do that, you'll close out of here, and you'll hold down the left shift key. Then you'll right click on the start button, hover over shutdown or sign out, and then click restart. And now when you see the please wait, you can go ahead and let go of the shift key. And then here you'll see choose an option. Under that you'll have continue and troubleshoot. So we'll select troubleshoot, and then under troubleshoot, click advanced options. And under advanced options, we'll select startup settings. Under startup settings, we'll have restart to change Windows options such as, and we want to enable safe mode. So we'll click restart here. Under startup settings, we'll want to select option number 4, enable safe mode. Now in safe mode, you'll know we're in safe mode if on all 4 corners you see safe mode, and on the top, Microsoft Windows build and whatever build version you're on. So now we'll go into File Explorer, we'll go to Downloads, and we'll double click on the DDU we just downloaded to extract it. So double click, and then click Run under the Smart Screen. Don't worry, it's safe software. I've been using it for years. So you can extract it here to your downloads folder, but I like to extract it to the DDU folder on the root. So we'll select extract. And now we'll go scroll down a tiny bit on the left, and we'll click this PC, the C drive, and then DDU, and then the latest version, which is 18.1 right here. I only have this version because I've done it before. And then we'll click display driver uninstaller. Display driver uninstaller, this seems to be the first time you've launched DDU. It is. So we'll select OK. And I have to minimize this because of my screen size. Here we'll have a bunch of options. These are incredibly important. If you have an AMD CPU down there, you need to make sure you uncheck everything here. Now, if you have an Intel CPU, it doesn't really matter. You can have everything checked. Also, you want to make sure that all of this is checked. Leave physics unchecked, and we'll want to remove the NVIDIA control panel. So that means we'll uncheck keep NVIDIA control panel if there's a check there already. Okay, so we'll scroll down a tiny bit. And then this one's incredibly important. If it's not checked already, place a check under prevent downloads of drivers from Windows Update when Windows search for a driver for a device. The translation is a little bit off, but what that's telling you is now when we boot back into Windows, Windows is immediately going to see, hey, I don't have a driver installed. Let's go find the quickest driver real quick before they can uninstall the driver and install the new one. And then they mess it up because you don't want to use Microsoft driver. You want to use the AMD drivers we just downloaded. So what this is going to do, it's going to stop Microsoft from frantically looking for drivers and allow you to install your own. So let's do that real quick. And then here we'll just click close once we've made all the changes. Then select device type, GPU. And then here, whatever GPU you have in the system right now, the old GPU, you want to select that. We have an NVIDIA card, so I'm going to select NVIDIA. If our old graphics card was an AMD card, or maybe we're using CPU graphics, on-die graphics without a graphics card, there's still graphics drivers. And if it was AMD, we'll select AMD. If it was Intel, be it from the CPU or from the GPU, we'll select Intel. But we're using NVIDIA. Or at least the old card is NVIDIA. Okay, so now what we'll do is clean and shut down. I select that because once it removes all the drivers, it shuts down and then gets us ready to physically install the card and remove the old card. This will only take a few seconds. It's incredibly important to do this, even if you're coming from AMD, going to an AMD card, or going from NVIDIA to another NVIDIA card. Whatever you're coming from, even if it's the same manufacturer, you want to do this because you want to build your graphics foundation on a clean slate. You want to make sure everything's solid before you install the drivers. If not, then you might have potential blue screens and different errors. This is going to make it solid and run perfectly for you. So now let's go ahead and remove the old card. When you open up the machine, before you touch anything inside or the brand new graphics card, you want to make sure you touch the case, the metal portions of the case, to ground yourself. That way you don't zap anything. Now, before we unscrew the graphics card, again, just ground yourself first, and we're going to remove the PCIe connection over here. It's hard to see, it's in an odd spot, but you'll see right over here, there's a little clip. That clip latches onto the card to make it difficult to just pull out the cable. You don't want to do that. So to remove this cable, we'll just push down right over here. And you'll notice this piece go up. Once that goes up, that releases the card. And then we can just pull it out nice and easy. So you might have noticed I did have power going to the graphics card, which means I had power going throughout the entire system. While typically I have the power plugged in, I have the power supply switch turned off. So the problem there is if there's a short or something odd happens while you're working in there, the computer could turn on and you could mess up some components, or even worse, the computer could fry or you can hurt yourself. So it's always best either to have the power supply not connected whatsoever, but if you do have it connected, make sure it's flicked off. After you turn it off, just press the power button a few times to make sure it doesn't turn back on. So let's keep going. Now the new card is going to require 2 of these, but I'll show you that in 1 second. And now that we've released that, we just need to unscrew the graphics card over here. And it'll be different on every single case. And now another thing that'll be different on every single case is the PCIe release mechanism. This MSI motherboard has a quick release button that is awesome. So you could see right over here, all I do is push this in. That disengages the PCIe slot. So now all I need to do is pull the card out and I don't damage the PCIe slot. Let me show you that on a little bit more traditional of a board. Now on a more traditional board, you'll have this little clip right over here. That little clip again locks the card in place. So now that we've already unscrewed over here and gotten rid of the PCIe cable, we'll push that retention mechanism in. That unlocks the card. So the same way we can just easily pull it out. And if you're using one of these older ones, which current motherboards still use it, the other motherboard is much newer, and that is a much newer technology. But here, if you're going to install a new card, you want to make sure that this is left unlocked, not locked. And if it's going to be your first time installing a card on the system, unlock it. So if you remember, the previous card required only one PCIe connection, an 8-pin or a 6+2 pin, a PCIe connection. The new card, the 9070 XT, requires two 8-pins, and yes, they both need to be connected, and they could be 6+2 or straight 8-pin PCIe connections. And it also requires at least a 750 watt power supply. If you only have one or don't have a 750 watt power supply, something lower than that, I recommend you get a new power supply. So this particular power supply is a 1300 watt. Extremely overkill, but it's only going to use what it needs. If yours doesn't have the additional PCIe connections, you may be able to buy additional ones for your specific power supply, and if not, you'll need a new power supply. So since mine does have additional ones, I just have to grab one from the box. So let me go ahead and plug it in, and let me show you where they are. We'll just come around the back. And we have a spare one right here. Now this is a modular power supply, so this in-win power supply, I have more PCIe connections in the box. If you still have the box for your power supply, check the power supply box for an additional cable. Again, if you don't have a 750 watt power supply, something below that, I recommend getting a new one anyway. So again, this comes from the power supply. So I'm gonna go ahead and feed it through there, and give me 1 second, I'll be right back. So now that we've done that, again, ground yourself in case you left and you came back, ground yourself, and then we'll go ahead and grab the card. Now, this one requires 3 PCIe slots. So we'll also want to make sure we remove the third one. All right. And then now we want to make sure that we bury these PCIe gold fingers into the PCIe slot, the same slot we removed the old graphics card, and we want to make sure that everything lines up. It's a little bit more difficult since I have so little space here, but let me see if I can give you a better angle. All right, and here you should be able to see, there we go, that slide in right over here. Now you want to make sure that the card goes all the way in, and mine is standing because it's easier for me to show you standing instead of the system laying on its side, and then just slide it in the slots, and perfect. Now, since this doesn't have the locking mechanism like the other motherboard had here, where you could see that PCIe locking mechanism pop up once the card is seated, it's a little bit more difficult here to know, but as long as these go all the way in and you can screw in without having additional space, then you're good. So now, what's in that black box? So Sapphire included this black box in the XT box. It comes with the GPU Sag bracket. Perfect. And then in there, because it goes into 3 slots, it brings 3 screws. Let's install that real quick. All right, so it is going to be a little difficult here because I need both hands for this. And since it's such a tremendous card, I see what they did. So I'll need the 4th PCIe slot to screw it in. So 1 second. I didn't realize that before. Sorry about that. Regardless, we'll still need all 3. Now we'll just need an additional one. So make sure you keep that PCIe slot right over here. Keep that piece in place. All right, now that we have that in place, we'll want to attach the top slot over here just to make it a little bit easier. And then make sure all the other screws are in line. Screw holes, I mean. Makes it a little easier to follow along. And now, making sure that all these are aligned, we'll go ahead and install this on the very bottom one just to make it a little tiny bit easier. Okay, it takes a little tiny fighting. And it is a long screw. Okay, and now we just need to fill in the other 3 screws. All right, so now we have to install the PCIe connections. All right, so again, you can use 6+2 or straight 8 PCIe connections. And then we'll go ahead, like we removed before, we want to make sure this little clip, you can see right there, locks into place. Here is it closed and open. So we want to make sure that clicks right into place. Right over here, just push it in and we'll hear a little click. And now it's locked in place. And then we'll go ahead and plug in the other one. Just push that in. And then it's up to you on how you make these look pretty. But the way I do it is I just make sure everything is lined up, almost like it came right out of the box, lined up looking pretty. First, I take care of these extended 6+2s. Make sure to keep them under control. And this particular cable is a little bit more difficult because it's not a rounded cable, it's flat. So it's harder to make it look nice. You might need some cable combs or something, but a zip tie will help you make it look a little nicer. Okay, and I'm not trying to make it look 100% pretty, just good enough so that you can see how it's installed. I'll leave the pretty part up to you. So let's go ahead, plug everything back in and install all the drivers. All right, so we'll connect everything back up here. We'll want to make sure we connect all the USB cables we had in there before, which I had a ton. And it doesn't matter which port you had connected them before, unless there was one that required USB 2, USB 3. USB 2 are going to be black ports. USB 3 will be blue ports typically. And the red ports will usually be powered ports, but that could change depending on the motherboard. Okay, now, if you plugged in your graphics card up here before with your on-die CPU or your onboard CPU graphics, now you're going to plug them over here. So just make sure you connect the right ones. As I said that, I connected it into the wrong port. And then your Ethernet, or if you had Wi-Fi, you'll connect your antenna again. And then we'll have the power cable. Just plug that in. And just remember, chances are you flick the switch off, so you have to switch it back on. All right, now we'll turn it back on for the first time after installing the new card. And now that we're back in Windows, we'll go to File Explorer, Downloads, and we'll install the latest AMD drivers we just downloaded. So double click on that. And everything is going to look a little fuzzy since we don't have the correct drivers installed right now. I don't like to keep the check here, so I'll uncheck that. And then I go under additional options, and then I always select factory reset, even though we've already uninstalled everything. And then I go to custom install. This goes ahead and checks all of the chipset just to make sure we have the latest, and we do, so perfect. And the chat, I'm not going to use that for now. Perfect, there's nothing here. We don't need to update the chipset, and then click accept and install. And this may pop up on your screen, restart required. I always recommend to restart when it's done, but you see it's still going, so don't restart just yet. All right, so now that it's done, uncheck here. And like I mentioned, it's all done. I'm gonna go ahead and close this directly. And then I like to manually restart just to make sure there's nothing else in the background installing. So right click on the start button, shut down or shine out, and restart. So 1 sec. And when you come back into Windows, it'll come back to this screen, the install manager. It's checking to see what needs to be updated. I'm gonna go ahead and skip that for now. Here we can see how the sag bracket holds the card in place, keeping it right here. And in case that little mechanism here that holds the card in place is hitting something it shouldn't, we can always unscrew it and move it around and then make sure it's tight again. Now, I may not be on the most flat surface, but here you can see that the bubble is almost right in the center. So now we've gotten rid of all the old drivers and we're on a fresh slate and we have the latest drivers installed. So we're going to explore the drivers just a little tiny bit, and then I'm going to show you how to optimize it for your best gameplay. So let's start off with GPU Z, and I just want to verify, yep, we're under UEFI, perfect. So we can close out of that. So now we'll right click on the background. And if we don't see it here, we'll click show more options, but we'll want to select AMD Software Adrenaline Edition. And we can skip out of here, Although if you wanted to go through all that, good information. So the main page gives you a ton. Here you can utilize HyperRX, which also utilizes FSR and all that great technology that AMD builds into these drivers. And we'll come back to that a little bit later on. AMD Assistant helps you work through all the features and everything based off of the drivers. Media and capture, take a screenshot, record a video, instant replay, instant GIF. You don't have any games here. If you had games, it'll go ahead and scan your drive, find games, and it'll recommend the best settings for you, or you can adjust them from here. Here it'll let you scan for those games. Here scans for the latest version. We're already on the latest. Let me know when you watch this video what the latest AMD driver is for you. And then the AMD chat, I haven't played with it just yet. Looks cool, but anyway, here if it was installed, we'll see a different interface. Then here under AI, a new tab. Here we can do our chatting and all of the AI apps here as well. I didn't realize that D5 Renderer, what I used in the review, was part of that, so that's nice. Under the gaming tab, here are all the games installed, so I didn't see them just yet, and we haven't tested them with the new drivers, but if anything, we'll see that here. All our different graphics settings, which is definitely something you want to play with to get the most performance out of your game. So that's beautiful here. And then over here, the same thing, we can set up HyperRX, the quality, HyperRX Eco default, which is what we're under now. And if we had two, which here is the integrated, the on-die graphics, getting rid of the old driver and installing the new driver gives us the latest for integrated graphics as well. And then here we can find the graphics advisors. We haven't played again with the new drivers, so we don't have anything to give us advice on. Record and streaming, we'll skip this for now, but this is where it allows you to do recording, live streaming, edit those scenes that we just recorded. Here it shows you all the media on your machine and then your different settings for your accounts and recording and streaming and everything. So that's great. I've used this before. This is an awesome piece of the software. Performance, here is where we can establish some metrics and show some on-screen display of FPS, latency, GPU1, all that good stuff down here. And here is where we can enable and disable the overlay like we do in MSI Afterburner. Tuning, so we can do some overclocking on the card, and then settings. And then lastly, Spark technology over here. Coming over here to the little gear or the cog, click that over here, and then I go into display. Now these are almost all the same settings, just a little bit deeper. So we already have FreeSync Pro enabled. So definitely that's one of the things I wanted to show you, enabling that. That'll definitely get you much better performance all around on everything. So perfect. And then again, you can play with all the settings, but two I want to focus on: AMD FreeSync Premium Pro, incredibly important. And we've already gone over FSR and HyperRX, which are incredibly important for performance. But the FreeSync is a foundation, and if you right click on the background, one of the most important display settings, and then advanced display settings right here. For some reason, Windows always defaults to 59 or maybe 60. We want to click on that, and then whatever is the highest your monitor supports, you select that here. This monitor only supports 120 Hertz, which of course is high, but it's not selected by default. So we'll click that and then keep changes. So I've shown you real quick how to get the most out of your card with the refresh rate and FreeSync as well. And then we've gone over the Adrenaline software. Definitely you want to play with FSR, HyperRX, and Fluid Motion frames. Those are going to help you get the most out of your card, and then a lot more. So I've shown you in this video how to get rid of your old graphics card, drivers and all, physically the card itself, and then install the brand new Sapphire Pulse RX 9070 XT graphics card. It's a beautiful graphics card. And then after that, I've shown you how to install the card, how to install the drivers, and then how to optimize it to get the best performance out of your system. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know down below. I love to help you guys with all of that. Now, this was just an upgrade, going from an old card to a new card. But this video coming up next, you're going to see a complete build utilizing this card. So a lot more coming soon. Iggy with ThisBytesForYou out. See you guys.